The emperor got into bed as he frequently did to rest a half hour and get dressed afterward. He'd been there barely 10 minutes when he was seized with nausea, which led to severe vomiting. It was the first time this occurred on St. Helena. On Elba, similar nausea had occurred, but had not happened since then. Here it was not the same. The fits occurred at long intervals at first, then got closer, and when the emperor finally took to his bed, they did not cease until his death. I was most uncomfortable about what I should give him. I carefully avoided suggesting the help of Dr. Verling, the artillery doctor who had replaced Dr. Mira, refusing the sugared water with a little orange flavoring that I offered him. He told me that his stomach was calming down, but his intestines were quite disturbed. He summoned Count de Montalon, with whom he spent several hours. For a long time, the emperor had complained of pain in his side and a sharp pain in his right shoulder that he had me massage with cologne. Then I dried it by rubbing my hand rapidly on the skin. He did the same for his side, but he would rub it with a soft brush. Then I poured a little cologne into the hollow of his hand, which he applied and rubbed himself and the pain he was feeling. All this was only a makeshift procedure where strong remedies were required. I ventured one day to tell the emperor I had prepared pills that the doctor had left me, as well as what was needed to rub his legs. As for that, he said, fine, but as for everything that must enter my stomach, you can toss it into the fire. Dr. O'Meara's report on the emperor's health was sent to Rome. Madame Mère and Cardinal Fesch submitted it for evaluation to the best doctors, who wrote up a report. It arrived in St. Helena 10 months later, at more advanced stages in the illness than those that had prompted the report submitted to their examination. The emperor nevertheless saw his mother's anxiousness to bring his suffering the only remedies she was allowed to offer him. That is a consultation that tackled the disease at its source and indicated means of easing it, if not curing it. It was signed by Dr. Macchielli, Madame Mere's doctor, and some professors at the university, Jean-Baptiste Bombard, Pierre Lapide, Dominique Marichini, and Joseph Cisco, all doctors with very good reputations. Trust cannot be commanded. The emperor liked to talk with his doctor about his art or any other subject if he was a man capable of understanding him, but he felt a great revulsion for any medication. He would fight disease through fasting when he felt sick, and used to say that man ate much more than he needed to survive. He often said to his doctor, I'm a spoiled child. I have never needed any of you. My constitution was made of steel, and it took the abominable climate where they have thrown me in order to destroy it. A few days before leaving Longwood, Dr. O'Meara urged the emperor to take some Cheltenham salts. He could not make up his mind for fear of inducing vomiting. I offered it to him diluted in the required amount of water before he swallowed it. He told me to bring him a silver basin, fully expecting to throw it up as soon as he had swallowed it. This did not happen, but this aversion made him feel at ease all day. And that evening, when the doctor returned from town, the emperor said to him, Doctor, your medication is fit for horses, but not for a gentleman. I remember that same evening, the doctor told him a discussion had arisen in town between officers of the garrison on the question of whether Ney had spoken in good faith when he promised the king he was taking his army corps to fight against his return from the island of Elba. Ney acted in good faith, said the emperor, in his promise to Louis XVIII when leaving him. But the enthusiasm of the population he saw along the way and that of his army made him hesitant. Bertrand's letter giving him an order to move his troops and the certainty of being received by me, as on the day after Moscova, made up his mind and awakened affection and patriotism in him. He came to see me in Auxerre, where I had spent the night, and we embraced like two brothers. His death is a vengeance on the part of the Bourbons, who saw fit to take out on him, rather than themselves, the shame of their flight. The emperor's health, left to itself after Dr. Mira's departure, far from improving, was getting worse. He would calm the frequent ailments he felt by drinking hot lemonade and ease his headaches with frequent foot baths. If his stomach got swollen, he would take chicken broth. Only his legs were subjected to the rub-down treatment prescribed by Dr. O'Meara. His feet were always cold and could never get warm, either in bed or when he was stretched out on his settee. Except through the application of hot towels, he would also put some of these on his side and his stomach when he felt pale, as he called it. This suffering ceased the moment he was in the bath. That is why he took one every day and enjoyed remaining there for 2 hours, allowing a trickle of hot water into the bath to maintain a constant temperature. His decline was obvious. The Grand Marshal and Count de Montholon urged the Emperor not to remain any longer without a doctor and suggested the one who had replaced Dr. O'Meara, Dr. Virling. For several months, he had taken care of Countess de Montholon for a liver problem that had appeared following her last pregnancy, and which seemed to resist the treatment she was following. Countess Bertrand considered herself and her children well cared for, but the Emperor flatly refused. This refusal was not aimed at the doctor, but at the governor, who was this doctor would have of his choosing. The Emperor considered Dr. Virling a perfectly honest man. He had spoken with him several times on the Northumberland, either at the table when he was invited there or during his strolls on deck. He preferred to let nature take care of saving him or killing him. If I took the liberty of telling him he was spending too much time at work and not enough taking exercise, he would look at me smiling and say, "I'm a dead man, my son. They begrudge me the very air I breathe. It is up to me to find, through work, a few flowers to cast on the path leading me to my grave. Don't I go into my gardens from time to time in my carriage? What more do you wish? I know very well that a good ride on horseback for 7 or 8 leagues would do me good and restore the equilibrium that is no longer mine. But how can I do this on a rock where there is not even enough room to reach a full gallop?" The governor had ceased to insist on having Dr. Baxter admitted. Because of the frequent strolls the Emperor took from his bedroom to his garden, the captain of the guard was sufficiently informed of the presence of his prisoner at Longwood and of the decline in his health through the little exercise he took. The governor decided to extend the boundaries of Longwood, and the last weeks of 1818 were exempt from the harassment suffered during the preceding period. By a ship arriving from Europe, the Emperor learned, thanks to a communication from the governor to the Grand Marshal, that Lord Bathurst announced the departure from Italy of 2 priests, a doctor, a butler, and a cook sent by Cardinal Fesch to St. Helena to serve at Longwood. The Emperor and all of us were filled with joy. The Emperor was thus going to receive the medical help of which he had been deprived, and some food for his mind, if the priest and the doctor were learned men, as there was reason to believe. The cook could also be very welcome, as the one who had replaced Lepage was quite bad. That same ship brought newspapers with insignificant news, but during the evening 2 letters were sent to the Grand Marshal, who brought them to the Emperor. One was from Count Las Casas, and the other from General Gourgaud. Both encouraged the Emperor to continue living and brought some hope. From London, General Gourgaud wrote the following letter to Empress Marie Louise. Madame, if your Majesty will kindly remember the conversation I had with her in 1814 at Grosbois, when, seeing her unfortunately for the last time, I told everything the Emperor had undergone at Fontainebleau. I hope she will forgive me for the sad duty I am fulfilling at this time by informing her that the Emperor Napoleon is dying in the greatest torment and the longest agony. Yes, Madame, the man united to you by divine and human laws through the most sacred bonds, the man you have seen receive the homages of almost all the sovereigns in Europe, the man over whose fate I saw you shed so many tears when he was leaving you, is dying the most cruel death, captive on a rock in the middle of the oceans, 2,000 leagues from those dearest to him, alone, friendless, without relatives, without news of his wife and son, and without any consolation. Since my departure from that fatal rock, I had hoped to be able to come and tell you of his suffering, certain of all that your generous soul could attempt. My hope has been disappointed. I have learned that no individual who could remind you of the Emperor, describe his situation, tell you the truth, could possibly approach you in a word that you were in the middle of your court, which serves as a prison. The Emperor had suspected it. During his moments of anguish, when to offer him some consolation, we spoke to him of you. He often replied, "You can be sure that if the Empress does nothing to alleviate my suffering, it is that she is kept surrounded by spies who prevent her from knowing anything of the suffering I am subjected to. For Marie Louise is virtue itself. Deprived of the pleasure of coming to see you, I have tried since my arrival here to send you some news. It is only now that a reliable opportunity has been offered me, and I hasten to take advantage of it to send you this letter, full of hope and trust in the generosity of your character and the kindness of your heart. The Emperor's suffering may still last a long time. There is still time to save him. and the moment seems well chosen. The sovereigns are about to gather at the Congress of Aix-la-Chapelle. Passions seem to have calmed. Napoleon is no longer to be feared. He is so miserable that noble souls can only take an interest in his fate. Under such circumstances, I beg your majesty to reflect on the effect such a grand step on your part would produce in going yourself to this Congress, soliciting the end of the emperor's suffering, begging your august father to join his efforts to yours to obtain that Napoleon be entrusted to him if politics does not yet allow him to be freed. Even if such an attempt did not fully succeed, the emperor's fate could be greatly improved. What consolation he would feel to see you acting thus. And you, madame, how happy you would be. What praise and blessings would be yours through such conduct, dictated to you by religion, honor, duty, and a conduct which only your greatest enemies could advise you not to undertake. It will be said, the European sovereigns, after having vanquished the great Napoleon, abandoned him in the hands of his most cruel enemies. They were allowing him to die of the longest and most barbaric suffering. The duration of his agony forced him to ask that his executioners be quicker. He appeared to have been forgotten without help, but Marie-Louise remained, and life was restored to him. Ah, madame, in the name of everything that is dearest to you, your reputation, your duty, your future, do everything you can to save the emperor. The memory of Marie-Therese orders you to do so. Forgive me, madame, for speaking to you in this fashion. I allow myself to be carried away by the feelings I have for you. I would like to see you first among all women. May your majesty remember that during a trip to Amsterdam, where I had remained ill, I was about to die for lack of care when your majesty, having been informed of this, sent me her own doctor with orders to attend to me with all the resources of the art. You have saved my life, madame. That memory shall never fade from my heart, and I feel I can best express my thanks by having the courage to write this letter to you. I remain, etc. General Gourgaud, London, August 25th, 1818. This letter, filled with deep love for the emperor, full of heartfelt and noble feelings, was only brought to my knowledge on my return to France. I have placed it here at the time when it must have arrived in St. Helena. It should serve to counter the indiscreet conversations in which Walter Scott spoke out against the general during his month's captivity in St. Helena and on his arrival in Europe. However, General Gourgaud is wrong in stating in his letter, when speaking of the emperor, that he was left in St. Helena alone, without friends, without relatives. Without relatives, yes, but without friends, no. It is impossible to doubt the great admiration, deep respect, and sincere friendship of Count Bertrand for the emperor, as well as that of Count de Montauban, whose attentions were those of a son.